All right, good early morning on Monday, peoples. It the markets are up big in the pre-market. Gold, silver, Bitcoin's up a couple percent. The futures, I think it's all centered around getting the government open. So who knows if this is sustainable, but for the most part, that's positive. All right, let's jump in here. I haven't done this in a while, and people had asked me, "Hey, can you update Bitcoin?" I know it's not particular popular right now, especially any of the micro strategies. So I'm only dealing with those funds that write on Bitcoin futures, FBTC, and IBIT. So let's jump in here. I always talk about trying to find the same time frames, right? So over here, I had a whole bunch of the funds when they launched, and we have a bunch of different dates, right? We have 5/1/64 and then back in 11/5/2024. So I tried to get a bunch of 11/5/2024s, 5/1 dates, 6/4s, a 4/2 even, 11/5. So I'm not going to bore you with those because they don't match. All right. So over here, I got everybody moved to 5/13 except for the Global X BCCC fund, which has a 6/4 date. And then I even went so far as to say, okay, I'm going to make everybody 6/4. So we can take a look at that. So let's catch up to what that actually means in terms of total launch, in terms of total return. So who is winning and who is losing? Well, the dark blue is purposely coded differently, and they actually vary. Normally, these are very close, but the FBTC from Fidelity had a 21, neither one pay a dividend, so it's not dividend driven at all. It's simply a function of outperforming. Now, why? Okay, so 181 days looked at with these guys going back to 5/13. Again, kind of the winner here is BCC. See, so, but I'll talk about that. I don't really allow it until I go down here and look at all the 6/4s because it's not the same time frame, even if it's only, 18 days different. Um, which can make a difference in the market. I mean, no question. So with XBIT, let's take Granite. So Granite, as we know, pays very well. Look at their annualized distribution. Nobody's even close. Now, again, so you have your two zeros for the blue one. Why is BitX green? Well, because it's a 2X, but it does pay distribution. So it's one of those interesting funds that has 2 times leverage. So in a bull market, if you're really bullish and Bitcoin once again starts to run, then it's one that pays you along the way. You don't often see that in the 2X funds. I don't know many others. Okay. But I know Granite pays real well. So ignoring just for a second BCCC because of a different start date, we don't see that many positives. And also you have to ignore the underlying fund, right? So BPI Grayscale was 0.07. BITO, which I've owned for a long time, is 3.26%. And then you had Roundhill winning if you ignore the 1071 here. But you had a bunch of other people right in there. So you had, ignore that one, you had Roundhill at 4, you had Bitto at 3, you had Granite despite a larger. So you can see that they Navi rode more, but they pay more. So that's why I say sometimes they can have a winning fund or an upper performing fund. But in this case, nobody's really happy with the results since 5/13. Now, it's not just 513, it's the last 3 or 4 months that's been so bad on um, BTC. So looking at that, then if we go to 6-4, you have more funds performing. Um, let's go in and XBIDI goes to 4.5. Now we can take the 1071 and say, okay, yeah, you won, right? Nobody else got there. So we had YBIT from Yielmax, which doesn't normally even turn positive here, get a 2%, but that was beat by three other funds. It was beat by BITO because they had 3.63, was beat by Roundhill 1.62, beat by Granite, and beat by BCCC. So nobody, well, Maxi seems to be the biggest loser in these to simplify fund. Neos, reasonable, but not good enough to really win. I don't know why I didn't have them up here. Maybe because they were a 6-4 fund as well. It's probably the only thinking, but that's fine. They're here, but they're not winning. Some of the Neos funds are really good. Apparently, this one, when you have a lot of people beating them. Um, now, very interesting for you guys. I did throw in GDXY and GDX. And someone might say, well, why? Well, I think the main reason is I think of BTC as a store of wealth, digital gold, right? It's been presented that way, and its performance, sadly, in many ways, has been tied to the triple Qs in the overall stock market. So risk on, risk off. And that to me isn't where Bitcoin's roots were. They were in, libertarian, outside the government thinking and all this. But now that Larry Flynt and BlackRock and all the Bitcoin ETFs and the funds that were supposed to take it to multi-millions of dollars, I don't know, right? I have more question marks than I have answers. I'm certainly all over gold, the gold miners, and the commodity super cycle. So to me, Bitcoin remains a question. My allocation is less than 1% of my investment anymore in Bitcoin, right? You look at BITO, that's it. Um, and that's an income fund. I don't own any coin. Now listen, before you guys write hate mail, don't hate. I'm just saying if it wakes up and comes back and performs and goes on to a new high, then there's some hope that, $1 million out there, but it needs to show me. My father was born in Missouri, so it's a show me state. It's the same thing with the metals and miners. I loved gold and I love to see it surge. But until the miners woke up, I've owned physical for 25 years. So that's been probably my best investment. If you go back and you look at the stock market, actually a video I'm going to make here shortly on how gold has outperformed the stock market for 25 consecutive years, right? When you add up all the total, there may be a year that the stock market, and when I say that, I mean like the S&P 500. But gold over 25 years has just simply outperformed the S&P 500. You add up all their percentage gains for from 2000 to 2025, and you add up gold. Well, I guarantee you that this commodity super cycle is going to be all about commodities and resources. So that's where I'm moving my investment. And if Bitcoin wakes up, I'll reallocate some, but I'm not sure. Again, I have more question marks than I have answers, but I would be the last to tell you it's hopeless, don't go there. But somebody who's allocated 80% in that direction, good luck, right? It needs to show us where it's going. Okay. So I'm putting my money where I expect it and where it has been treated the best. So if you're interested, come over, right? I usually put this in my videos. PWC for my targeted wealth creation. www.patreon.com/TWC. I had labeled it 100, but when I redid some descriptions, so I think either one will get you there. If you go with the TWC 100, but it is TWC, and you'll recognize the content when you come over there. I talk some about high yield funds. I talk a lot about the commodity super cycle. Um, I help people with their portfolios. There's three tiers. One of the tiers has a built-in 45-minute call every month. And even if you're in a middle or lower tier and you want to have a consultation, I've taught probably 10 people now options, how to actually do options trading and do options on people that are just don't fully understand it. So that goes over pretty well. I usually do that in 3 1-hour sessions. I haven't had not had anybody so far not be able to pick it up. Obviously, you're still somewhat of a novice, but at least you understand how to put the positions on. You understand the basics of most of the positions, and I'm available for questions even beyond the 3 1-hour sessions. So we're doing a lot over there, people. I'm showing people what I'm buying, what I'm selling, what I think the 10 baggers are. And again, we're also starting to see more and more and more income funds. So anybody that isn't aware, you can look at SLJY, which is all about silver miners. And you can look at now GDXW from Roundhill. I love the leverage, which both of these have SIL, which is silver miners, as their underlying. This one not only has SIL as the underlying, but it also has 6 or 8 or 10 of the larger silver miners, so they're doing covered calls. Unfortunately, I wish it was different, but this one's a monthly. But I expect it to outperform, whoops, GDX over here. GDX is medium to large size gold and silver miners. All right. Now, most of you probably know there's a GDXY. I don't like it. The main reason I don't like it is it has no leverage. So GDX is in a pullback right now. I mean, today we're going to pop up to 75, but we're up around 85 or so, got as low as 68. I think we're bouncing back up to 78. I still think there's maybe another push down in the stock markets and in the metals. I could see 65, 63. We'll see. That's analyzing the chart. But then we take off. I fully expect 111, maybe 120 by late next year. So just to give you an idea, I'll be going long, very long on that if we get to that 65 area. But what this will do with 120% leverage is, again, higher highs, right? We'll go up a lot. That doesn't mean that we don't go from, say, 65 if we go there, or 63, we might run up to 80, 85 and turn around and have an 18% pullback, a 20% pullback. But the idea is higher highs. Again, in a year, I'm looking at $111. It's like 85%. I didn't even do the math. But actually, yeah, it's probably in the 90s. Let's say we do get to 65 and we get to 112, right? What is that? Yeah, 72%. So that's not bad for 1 year. Just this over the last 4 months, and GDX is up 13, or sorry, 36.17%, right? If you annualize that, that's 103. So this stuff is moving, this stuff is performing, and you people that are interested in income funds, you can take a look at this kind of stuff. I know this is small, guys. You're not going to really be able to see all this, but it wasn't really planned. It was just something that I came out with while we were talking. Let's do a background on this and make this one white. Okay, so anyway, I find it very interesting. I always say go where your money's treated best. For me, that's commodity super cycle. That's energy, oil, not until probably the first quarter, although you can get into some oil plays early. Natural gas has been starting to move. The grains are moving. Also, uranium. It's been pulling back. I just bought. It could drop a little more, but it's in the accumulation zone. So that's the kind of stuff I do. I put a lot of videos out, what you can buy, when I'm buying it, what I like, why I like it, and give you a number of options. Um, no pun intended on the options thing. But it's a great community. We're having a lot of fun. Most everybody is up. Sure, if you bought 30 days ago, you're probably down because look at this. If you went back just 3 weeks ago, this was probably 70%. We've had like a 24%. Now, this is moving up, right? Like I said, it's going to open here 75 this morning or something. But, we went as low as 68. This has been up like 89, I believe. Let me look at what the high is here. Or GDX on one of my other pages. 80, 84. Yeah, October 16th, it was 84.44 and had been a high of 85.09. So pretty substantial in where it's gone. And if you go back just a couple more months, it's even more. At one point, GDX was up, I think, 100% during the year. We have some individual miners up like that. So anyway, guys, going right here, let me just wrap this up. So who looks good here and everybody at 6.4? Well, Ybit does, 297, not so much for Neos. BitO, 363. So the top two, give it to Granite, YBitty, and Global X, the B Triple C funds. All right, guys, this is Bruce with Targeted Wealth Creation. I'm not a financial advisor. This is not financial advice. Consider the Patreon. It's a great, great environment. I put a lot of content out there, probably causing me to put a little less on the YouTube side, but I'll continue my YouTube. I won't stop it. I'll focus on the high yield dividend stuff. All right, guys, that's it. Have a good Monday. It looks to be good in the markets unless it reverses. All right, guys, bye for now.